Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. As you could see by that little intro, today we are going to be discussing a ton of books. To be more specific, 50 plus. I think it's maybe like 55 or so. And these are all very popular BookTok books, and I'm going to share my opinions on all of them today. I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet. I'm definitely going to, mark my words, I'm holding myself to it. I feel like I just yap and yap and yap usually when I talk about books, but for this video, because we have over 50 books, I'm going to keep it very short, very brief, just say my general feelings. I'm not really going to talk about what the book is about or anything. These books are popular, so I feel like most people know them already, and you can just watch this video to see what I think about them, learn my tastes a little bit, things like that. Also, I thought this would be a fun video because I love BookTok. That's how I got my start in the book content creating community. Also, even before I was creating book content, I got tons of recs from BookTok. I have my own BookTok. If you don't follow me there, you should. I post around 1 to 3 times a week, and it's usually like book recommendations. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this video. I think we should just get right into it because it's probably gonna be a little bit of a long one. And I think I'm just gonna grab one of these stacks and just go through it. So this is in like no specific order. It's just this stack I chose. First up is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is a very popular YA fantasy book on TikTok. I feel like it's one of the most popular fantasies and everyone loves it. Like, not only is it a very popular fantasy, but it's like one of the most popular books I've ever seen. Everyone loves this book, and I'm not in that same boat. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was exciting, and there was a little bit of a good romance. I was entertained, but I never really loved this book. I thought it was just okay. I definitely think it's a bit overhyped, and my main qualm with it is that I think it's a little bit unoriginal. Next is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I feel like this is one of the OG BookTok books. It was very popular like 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago, and I actually just read it this year, and I would say I liked it, but I didn't love it. It's a very like lyrical, well-written, like emotional type of book, and I think it needed a little bit more plot, or I needed it to have a little bit more plot to enjoy it. I think if you're someone who likes a more character-based book, things like that, you would like it, but for me it felt a little bit boring, a little bit repetitive, but I can acknowledge that it's a really good book with like a really good premise, and like I can tell that it's good. It just didn't super deliver for me. Then we have When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I actually just finished this book yesterday. This is like a silly, cute little rom-com, and for me, I didn't love it. It's around like a 3-star, very mid for me. I kind of didn't connect to anything in this book at all. The only feeling I have about it is that it was cute. I literally don't feel anything else about it. So I don't know, it was kind of like when I was reading it, I was just reading. Like I wasn't connecting, I didn't go any deeper. And I'm not sure if Sarah Adams is for me. I wanted to give her a shot, but I feel like I don't know if I'll read any of her other books. Next up, we have some Abby Jimenez books. So this was the first book of hers that I ever read, and that is The Friend Zone. And I don't really think that this is super popular on TikTok, but I just wanted to include it. I actually gave this book 5 stars. It's the only book of hers that I have given 5 stars. I would love to reread it though, because I read it a while ago, and it's the first book in one of her connected standalone series. So I do want to read that series, and I think if I read it, I will start with this one again and kind of see if I still think it's a 5-star. And then the next 2 Abby Jimenez books are definitely more TikTok popular. We have Part of Your World, and we have Just for the Summer. I thought that this was a kind of average rom-com, a little better than average. I did enjoy it, but I wasn't obsessed, and I didn't love, love, love. Just for the Summer, I absolutely adored this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm not quite sure why it's not a 5-star. It just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. I did include this book in a whole reading vlog, so you can check that out if you want my more detailed opinions, but I just thought this was a phenomenal like beach rom-com. It has more emotional depth to it, and I just thought it was a very like true, realistic relationship, and I really enjoyed it. Next is the Folk in the Air trilogy by Holly Black. So this is a 3-book YA fantasy trilogy, and I really enjoyed it. I rated the first 2 books 4 stars, and then the final book was more of like a 3.5. But overall, I would say I really liked the series. I know it's kind of controversial on TikTok. Some people really love it and some people hate it, so I was a little nervous going into it, and I think I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it. I really enjoyed the politics of it and the cleverness of the series. I will say that the final book in the series, I believe it was The Queen of Nothing, kind of made me like the entire series a little bit less. It was a little bit of a unsatisfying ending to me, like what's the word? Not unsatisfying, like underwhelming. It was a little bit of an underwhelming ending to me. I've also read other YA series after this that I love so much more, YA fantasy series, so I feel like this is just one that I like. I don't love, but I really liked it. And I would say it's worth the read if you're on the fence. Next, we have some very popular books. We have Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates. These are the first two books in the Magnolia Parks universe. I've only read the first two, and I believe there are 5 out currently. I do want to continue the series and read the series very soon. So my thoughts on this series are that I do enjoy it. I don't connect to the books as deeply as I know some people do. Like some people, these books are their Roman Empire, and I think the problem with me is that these are a little bit, they're not your typical romances. Like they don't have happy endings. They are very messy. There's love triangles. There's all this drama. And for me, that drama like makes it not a 5-star because I find it to be a little bit repetitive and a little bit like annoying when I'm reading the books. But I do like the characters and I do love some of the love in here, and I did like Daisy Hates more than Magnolia Parks, but overall it's kind of like a 4-star series for me at the moment. I'm excited to finish it and continue the series, but it's not my everything like I know that these are for a lot of people. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This I feel like is one of the few thrillers that have taken TikTok by storm, and I loved it. I definitely want to read more Lisa Jewell because I thought this book was phenomenal. Whenever I talk about this book though, I do say that I think the journey was better than the destination, and by that I mean that I think the reading experience was way better than the ending. And usually in a thriller you're looking for like a very satisfying ending, something that wraps it all up, something that shocks you, and this like didn't have any of that. But the entire book had me so on the edge of my seat. I was so hooked. I thought it was so much fun, and I really do think it was a phenomenal thriller, even though the ending like didn't completely satisfy me. Next is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I'm also going to include the Chestnut Springs series in this little review, and overall I think all of these books are pretty like overhyped. I don't really enjoy Elsie Silver's books. There is one book that I really connected to and I really loved, that was Heartless by Elsie Silver, but overall I don't think I connect to her writing, and I don't love her books, unfortunately, because I know they are so popular, and I think this is kind of a me problem, and yeah, they're kind of like middle of the road books for me overall, and I don't love them. I think that this is one of my most like unpopular opinion, or my most like the most I disagree with BookTok, one of the most. Okay, it is time for another popular author, and that is Emily Henry. So the only book I'm missing here in the stack is The People We Meet on Vacation. Yeah, that is the one I'm missing. And for me, Emily Henry in general is a very mid author. I think that I just don't connect to her stories and her characters the way that everyone does, and then when they connect like that, that's when they are these like epic 5 stars. For me, her writing just doesn't do it for me that much, and I think the main thing is that I find it to be a little bit boring. I don't know why, but that is just how I feel. And I think I'll go through these books and kind of tell you how I felt about each of them. So first, Beach Read. I actually never ended up finishing this book. I read a lot of it, but I guess you could consider it a DNF, and I think that says a lot. I definitely didn't love it. I was bored. I didn't even feel the need to finish the story. I did DNF it like way before I was a serious reader, so I feel like if I read it now or within the past year, I wouldn't have DNF'd it. So maybe I'll go back to it eventually, but I feel like I probably won't. Then is Book Lovers. I also read this one a little while ago, and I do remember enjoying it. I definitely enjoyed it more than Beach Read, and I also enjoyed it more than Happy Place. This one I read very recently, and throughout the entire book, the only thing I was thinking was, this is the most like mid book I've ever read. Like I don't have super negative feelings towards it, but I don't have super positive feelings towards it either. I was just like kind of completely neutral. And I know so many people think this is the most emotional, like they connect to this book so much, and I don't know what's wrong with me, but that just didn't happen. And then her most recent release, Funny Story, I just read this one recently too, of course. I did a reading vlog on it if you want my full thoughts, but I actually was thoroughly surprised by this. I ended up really enjoying it as well. I didn't love, but I did enjoy it, and I think I like Emily Henry books that lean more towards rom-coms, like Book Lovers, Funny Story, and I think People We Meet on Vacation are more of her rom-com-y books, and those are the ones I enjoyed more. And I feel like if you don't like these ones, then you like her other ones, which are more like character emotional. That's kind of my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, so that is one stack pretty much done. I'm gonna go for this one next. Let's see if I don't spill it. Oh my God, heavy. Also, as you can tell, this is a very author heavy, series heavy stack, so it should be pretty quick. First up, we have Ali Hazelwood. Again, I have a full reading vlog on Ali Hazelwood. I read 2 of her books in there, and I also included my full ranking of all of her books if you want more of my detailed opinions on her books. But overall, I love Ali Hazelwood. She is definitely one of my favorite rom-com authors, probably top 2 with Abby Jimenez. I just love her books. I will say that I've had a little bit of a rocky road with her. The first book of hers that I read was Love Hypothesis, and I really didn't like this book. I thought it was cringe. I just kind of really disliked it. So I swore off of her books. I thought I would never read them again. But then I was seeing so much hype surrounding her books, specifically Love Theoretically on TikTok. So I decided to give her books another shot. I read this book and I loved it. I was so surprised. I gave 4.5 stars, and then that started my whole journey of rediscovering Ali Hazelwood and my love for her. And then I read her other 3 books and loved them as well. All 4 of these were above a 4-star for me. I even think they were all above a 4.25 star. So that is a phenomenal rating for me, especially for romances. They usually, honestly, they just usually don't do it for me. I get bored. But I think the way that Ali Hazelwood writes her books, they're so funny, they're so quirky, they're action-packed. There's usually another plot in there that keeps me hooked. And I just think she really does it right. I cannot wait for more of her books to come out. Next, we have ACOTAR. So I was a little bit late to the ACOTAR game. I read the entire series this year. Actually, I did read the first book last year, but then I stopped once I finished this book. I wasn't in the biggest reading mood, so I wasn't really in the mood to continue the series. Overall, I would say I read the series this year, or it was actually December of last year, but still, I read these very recently, and overall, I really loved the series. I gave a couple of the books 5 stars. I think it is A Court of Mist and Fury that I gave 5 stars, and I actually gave Frost and Starlight 5 stars, which I know a lot of people don't like it, but I thought it was the perfect little novella, spending time with all the characters. I loved it. I honestly feel like I don't need to spend too much time on these books because they are probably the most popular books on BookTok, but I did enjoy them. I think that they are a little bit overhyped, the tiniest bit overhyped. Like, I loved them so much, but the way that they are hyped online is insane. And I don't think they lived up to that hype for me. Like, these are not my Roman Empire books. I will not think about them forever and ever and ever. I probably won't reread them, all of that, but I did thoroughly enjoy myself with them. I think that some of them are way too long and repetitive, and that's probably why they're a little lower in my thoughts. Also, should I read Throne of Glass? I really, really liked this series, probably even loved this series, but I don't know, like, I just don't know if I'm a Sarah J. Maas girly, but please let me know if you think I should. Next, we have Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and these also took TikTok by storm. Like, Fourth Wing is probably the book that blew up on TikTok the most in the history of books on TikTok. This got non-fantasy readers reading fantasy. It got me reading fantasy. I had read like fantasy, dystopian, like kind of science fiction-y vibes when I was growing up, you know, like Hunger Games, Divergent, Harry Potter. Like, I read all that and I loved it, but I hadn't read fantasy as an adult, and this brought me back into fantasy, and now it is one of the genres that I do read, and I absolutely loved Fourth Wing. I loved Iron Flame even more. I think they are phenomenal books. I love them more than ACOTAR. I cannot wait for the next book in the series, and I also like know that people hate on Iron Flame especially, and I'm not here for it. Like, Iron Flame was a 6-star book for me. So if you also love these books, we can be best friends, because I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion, at least for Iron Flame. Love, love, love. We are now in the 3rd stack, so I'm actually kind of flying through this video. It's going way quicker than I thought. But we have 2 books. We have Twisted Love by Anna Huang and Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. And I'm gonna include these together because I had similar experiences with them. And I think that this is also the 2nd book. So you know what? If you're a Lauren Asher fan, you can come for me, because I did read the 2nd book in a series. I didn't read the first, and maybe that dampened my experience. I don't know. But I bought these books the same day in Barnes & Noble on like one of those BookTok sections, kind of like the end of a shelf, all BookTok popular books, and they sounded amazing. They sounded incredible. I had also seen them on BookTok a little bit my own, so I grabbed them and I read them both in like 2 days, and I was so disappointed in both of them. I really didn't enjoy either of these. I just thought that like the writing wasn't that good. I thought they were cringy books. They're both romances, and I don't know, and I know these authors are still very popular on TikTok, and I kind of have sworn off of them. Like, I don't think I'll read another book by these authors. Actually, I did try another book by Anna Huang, and I think it was Twisted, like the first book in her like King of Blank series. I actually did like that a little bit more, but like not enough to be a fan. Anyway, these were like the first books that I was recommended to because of BookTok, or I read because of BookTok, and I was let down. Like, it was the first books that I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't take BookTok recommendations to heart so much. Like, I don't know. And ever since then, BookTok has let me down a few times just because, of course, everyone's opinions are not going to be the same. I watch so many YouTubers, I watch so many TikTokers, and everyone has so many different opinions on so many different books. Like a book that I love, another YouTuber could also love, but then they could also love a book that I hate. Like it's just so subjective. So I feel like even take my opinions right now with a grain of salt because everyone is so different. But these ones like kind of changed my mind on BookTok a little bit, being like, don't just read everything that BookTok recommends. This is also that sort of book, Archer's Voice. So many people love this book. They think it is so emotional, and I just thought it was cringe. Now, the reason why I think it's cringe is because Archer, he is this kind of, he's this very like non-alpha man, and I love an alpha male in a book. Like I love a mafia man, I love a big tough guy. So I feel like that's kind of self-explanatory. He kind of gave me the ick. Like the main female character, if I remember correctly, kind of had to like show him the ropes of like intimacy and everything, and that just, it just didn't do it for me. Like in a romance, I kind of want to be swooning over the man, and I definitely wasn't swooning over him in this book. I think some people could say that this was very sweet and that they loved that Archer was innocent like that, but it just didn't do it for me. Next, we have two of my favorite books of all time. We have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, both by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love these books. I think they are phenomenal stories with phenomenal characters. Honestly, that's all I need to say. I've talked more about these books in my favorite books of all time video that I posted on here. I just love them, and I also think that they are a bit more like sophisticated reads. They're not very sophisticated, but like a little bit more than maybe just a rom-com like fluffy romance. And like these books make me feel a little bit smarter while also still being like a girly read, if that makes any sense. I don't know, I love them. They both made me cry, especially this one. I was sobbing. They're incredible. Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. This is a YA fantasy duology, and I really liked these books. I gave both of them 4 stars, but I'm thinking that Ruthless Vows like now might be a little bit lower, maybe in the 3-5 range. I don't know, my rating scale is always changing, so sometimes books that I rated a little while ago, like I feel like the rating is changed now. But either way, I definitely enjoyed these books, but I never was like obsessed and loved them. These books kind of make me feel how Powerless makes me feel. I feel like so many people love Powerless. They think it's this epic romance, and people feel the same way about Divine Rivals. They think it's so lyrical and beautiful and poetic and just an incredible romance. And I loved this book, or I really liked this book despite the romance. Like I liked the world building, I liked the adventure in here, and I thought the romance was like kind of cringy. It happened way too soon. It was like insta-love. I didn't like the romance in this book at all. I liked everything else, which is such a hot take on this book, but it's how I feel. I feel like I've discovered that any romance that people love because of its like lyricalness and beautifulness and all that, like I don't feel it. Something about it, like that doesn't do it for me. Okay, this is all we have left. We are making fantastic progress. And a big chunk of this is the Boys of Tommen series. I love the Boys of Tommen series so much. It is my favorite series of all time, and some of these books are my favorite books of all time. And you know what? I am gonna kind of take this one out because I just read Taming 7. It's the 5th book in the series, and it was very much a disappointment to me. It did not deliver like the rest of the books in the series did, and I don't feel the same way about this book that I feel about the others. So again, I feel like I've mentioned this so many times, but if you want more of my thoughts, I do have a reading blog where I read this book. It's the same one where I read Funny Story, so head over there if you want more of my thoughts on this book. But the first 4 books were literally life-changing for me. They changed my reading journey, they changed my reading life, and I think they may have changed my just like life in general. These are the best stories I have ever consumed, like not just read, the best stories I ever watched, listened to, anything. Like I'm obsessed with these stories, I'm obsessed with the love, I'm obsessed with these characters. So I'm sure you know Binding 13 and Keeping 13 follows one couple, and then Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 follows another couple. And I just think that these are the most beautiful, epic love stories like of all time. They are so romantic. They're just such amazing love stories. Like that's all I can say. They made me swoon, they made my heart hurt, they made my heart giddy, they gave me butterflies, they did everything. All of it. If you want to know one thing about me when it comes to reading, just know that I love this series. Next is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is a very popular YA romance book, and it is my first and only Lynn Painter book I've ever read, and I really liked this. I thought it was cute, fluffy, and it's exactly what it seems like. It's like one of those 2000 rom-coms in book form. It's very silly, it doesn't require much brain effort, and I really enjoyed it, but I definitely don't love, love, love. Like, I don't think there's enough to this book for me to love it, but like, I liked it for what it was. It was very simple. It is honestly, I kind of even forget already what goes on in it, but I just know that I liked it. And last but not least, we're gonna be talking about Frida McFadden books. So I've read 3 of her books. I've read The Housemaid and The Housemaid Secrets, which is like 1 and 2 in this little series. I really loved this. I gave it 5 stars. This one was a little bit of a disappointment. I gave it 3 stars. And then I really enjoyed this one as well. I gave it 4 stars. And then my overall take on Frida McFadden as an author is that she definitely doesn't write the most sophisticated thrillers. They're not like extremely complex. Honestly, sometimes they don't even make sense. But I think that if you can kind of set that aside, which I do when I'm reading them, they are fun to read. They are easy. They're like a good little beach read, a good palate cleanser. I feel like they're good to have on hand if you just are craving like a no brain power, easy read. I still think that the storylines are entertaining and that there are twists and turns that shock me. But if you want like the most, you know, hurting your brain, complex, think about it, wow thriller, these aren't gonna be it, but they are a good time. Wait, I thought that those Frida books were the last books I wanted to include, but I did remember that I wanted to include the Windy City series. I don't have those books physically, so that is why I almost forgot them. I read them on my Kindle. Actually, I listened to 2 of these on audiobooks and I read 1 on my Kindle. So it is Mile High, The Right Move, and then Caught Up. And these are all like sports romances that deal with different professional athletes in Chicago. And I thought that Mile High was okay. I gave it a 4 star, so I did like it. I did really enjoy it, but it might be like a little bit lower than a 4 star. But I've seen a lot of people not like Mile High, and if you feel that way, you just have to power through. Like, trust me, power through and you will love the next 2 books so much. The Right Move and Caught Up are some of my favorite romance books of all time. I thought they were perfection. Like, honestly, these are the perfect romance books to me. I think that they are just done so well. They have really good tropes. They give me butterflies. Phenomenal. And I think it's actually an underhyped series on TikTok. I know people talk about it a lot, but like, I want this series to get as much hype as Chestnut Springs gets, because I don't think Chestnut Springs deserves all of the hype, and this series deserves more hype. Like, one of these books made me cry. It's just so good. And I think that those books are actually the conclusion of this video. We have gone over 50 plus books. Again, I don't know exactly how many books. I think probably around 55. And I feel like I covered a lot of popular TikTok books. Let me know if you guys would want me to do a video like this again, because I definitely have read more popular TikTok books. I feel like these are like the main ones that stood out on my shelves and in my Goodreads. But honestly, like, probably every book I read could be considered kind of popular on TikTok. So let me know if you want a round 2. So I think that's it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok. Of course, this whole video was book talk themed, so you should definitely join me over there. And don't forget to subscribe here for more book content. I'll see you in the next one.